Mr. Watts, thank you for your testimony, and all written testimony will be included as part of the record. The chair and the vice chairman are going to exit and vote. I'm going to recognize Senator Risch for his questions, and in our absence, he'll lob back and forth based upon seniority. Senator Risch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, it always impresses me the fact that when we hear people talking about Russian policy and what they want, first of all, how uniform it is. Everybody seems to agree on where they're going, what they do, and what they're doing to get there. But after processing that over a long period of time, one's got to come to the thought process of what happens in a post-Putin Russia, because everyone's got a shelf life, and his has been extended. It looks to me well beyond what normally would happen under these circumstances. So, give me your thoughts briefly, each of you, if you would, as to what happens. Do they stay on the same track they're on, or do they come to the realization that there's bigger and better things in life to pursue than what they're doing right now? Mr. Godson?
Well, thank you for the question. There's a lot, as you know, a lot of variables here at work. One would be how we respond to Putin and the behavior of the apparatus that they have. Do we let them continue to do this, or do we start to develop some sort of a strategic response to them? That would be one of the variables. Do they find that they can get away with, use active measures as they have in the past? And if so, then the elite that has taken power in Russia would be inclined to continue. They found that even when they sometimes have not been as effective as they expected, that active measure still is a capability that enables them to use the example of being able to fight above their economic and political capabilities. So unless there was a dramatic change in the regime, there's little reason to believe that they would cease the active measures policy and strategy they have, barring that we don't actually cauterize it and limit its effectiveness. If we don't, then they'll have an incentive to continue.
Dr. Rumer?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Putin, I believe, is 62, a man in his prime. He's positioned to run in 2018 again for another 6-year term. So I think what we see today is going to be with us for a long time. By the looks of it, for the next 2 presidential terms in this country. So we should base our policy accordingly. I think it would be incorrect and counterproductive to tar all Russians with the same brush. But there's something there in Russian traditional security perceptions that transcend party lines, that transcend regimes, and Russian perceptions of security don't really change all that much over time. So I think we should be thinking about the drivers of Russian foreign and security policy in terms of continuity rather than radical change. After all, we already saw radical change in 1991, and things in the end didn't really change that much. As long as Russian elites will see themselves, as long as they see themselves as being inferior and struggling against a more advanced and a more powerful Western alliance, they will be relying on all tools in their toolkit, and information warfare will be part, disinformation will be part of it. We may hope that if someday someone like the corruption fighter Alexei Navalny gets elected, rises to the leadership of the country, having been a victim of such disinformation, he may be more restrained in it. But I would say that the basic parameters of Russian policy are generally set in place.
Thank you, Doctor. I've only got a short time left. I want to hear from Mr. Watts.
Yes. Regarding Mr. Putin, I would look to these two gentlemen primarily, but my thoughts are, one, he's not going away anytime soon. Two, he will definitely shape some sort of a successor in his place to continue on with what he's doing right now. I think the third big thing that we can't discount is the connection with criminality. There is, between these elites and their sort of predatory capitalist practices, what we see in cyberspace with cybercrime and how they've used hackers very, very well as part of their active measures, we can't discount that we'll see a predatory elite emerge that will be something we have to deal with. And I think the fourth thing, which goes to the first point, is I'm not sure what our policy or stance is with regards to Russia at this point in the United States. And I think that's the number one thing we have to figure out, because that will shape how they interface with us. Having watched the end of the Soviet Union as a cadet at West Point and then fast forwarding to today, I'm a little bit lost as to what our U.S. interests are or how they're coalescing. I know what I would recommend, but I think that will have a major impact on how we will be able to interface, and maybe I see opportunity in Putin's departure.
Thank you, Mr. Watts.